Hey guys, tonight we're going to take a journey high up into the mountains where the rivers flow through valleys, carving their way through some of the most rugged landscapes in the world. You might think it's a bit strange to be so fascinated by water, but trust me, the Inca engineers knew that without rivers there would be no empire. And with all the complex challenges these rivers threw at them, you'd probably think you wouldn't last a day living in those mountains. But that's exactly why the Incas were so remarkable. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I always love hearing where you're from, so go ahead and drop your location and local time in the comments below. It's always fun seeing how we're all connected by history no matter where we are. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The Inca Empire, a civilization that stretched from modern-day Chile to Colombia, flourished across the most challenging terrain in the Americas, the Andes. The rivers that flowed down from the Andean mountains weren't just sources of water. They were the lifeblood of the entire empire. They provided irrigation for crops, water for domestic use, and routes for travel. These rivers, though essential, posed constant challenges due to their unpredictable nature, fluctuating between destructive floods in the rainy season and dry spells during the dry season. The Inca engineers, however, managed to master these mountain rivers, turning them from a constant threat into a reliable resource. But how did they do it? Was it sheer ingenuity, or was there some divine inspiration behind these creations? Historians are still unsure about exactly how these ancient engineers designed their hydraulic systems, and some of their methods remain a mystery. Water was incredibly sacred to the Incas, often personified as a powerful force from the gods. They built sacred wells, fountains, and waterways that were not only practical, but also symbolic. But the most impressive feat of all was the way they managed to harness water from the mountains. The aqueducts they constructed weren't just marvels of engineering, they were integral to the functioning of the empire. These engineers didn't just throw a pipe in the ground and call it a day. No, they thought of everything: the steepness of the mountain, the distribution of water, and even the quality of the materials they used. They knew that every drop of water counted. And it wasn't just about the elite. The water systems benefited the entire population. From farmers cultivating crops on steep terraces to warriors travelling across the highlands, water was at the centre of it all. Imagine the mountains around you towering above, with rivers flowing down their jagged slopes, cutting through the land like veins carrying the very lifeblood of the earth. It's hard to imagine how a civilization could thrive in such a rugged environment. Yet that's exactly what the Inca Empire did. Rivers weren't just a luxury, they were essential. And the Incas, with their remarkable engineering skills, transformed these rivers into their empire's foundation. You're standing on the edge of a riverbank now. The water runs swift, carving through the rocks. You might be thinking, well, that's just a river. But for the Incas, it was more than that. It was a lifeline. It's said that they saw water as a gift from the gods, and this wasn't just about drinking or bathing. Water was deeply woven into their cosmology. It was divine, sacred, essential for sustaining life. The Incas believed water had a spiritual essence connecting them to the heavens and to Pachamama, or Mother Earth. These rivers, however, weren't always cooperative. Rivers in the Andean highlands are notoriously unpredictable. During the rainy season, the water would surge, flooding the land, destroying crops and disrupting daily life. But in the dry months, the water would recede, leaving behind arid patches of land, making agriculture near impossible without irrigation. Yet the Incas found a way to turn these challenges into triumphs, creating complex engineered solutions that continue to awe modern engineers today. In the Sacred Valley, which lies nestled between the towering peaks of the Andes, the Inca engineers constructed an extensive irrigation system. The valley is lush with fertile soils, but only when the rivers were carefully managed. They built aqueducts, canals, and terraces, carefully directing the flow of water to the crops that needed it most. The canals snaked across the landscape, cutting through steep mountainsides, and the aqueducts, made of stone, were designed with precision. It's fascinating that even now some of these systems still carry water, a testament to the ingenuity of the Inca engineers. Historians still argue about the methods used to design these aqueducts. Were the Incas simply talented at reading the natural world, or did they have a deeper, almost mystical understanding of water flow? Some scholars even suggest that the Incas might have used some kind of trial and error method, improving upon their designs over generations, while others claim that there was a grand overarching plan that guided their work. Either way, the systems they created were more than just practical, they were works of art. These aqueducts didn't just supply water for irrigation, they also played a role in the social organisation of the empire. Water was a valuable resource, and distributing it equitably was vital for keeping the empire running smoothly. Some historians argue that these systems of water distribution were a form of social control, making sure that the needs of everyone from the emperor to the peasant were met. Whether this was a deliberate effort to maintain harmony, or a side effect of the Incas' efficient engineering, the result was the same: the Incas had the resources to thrive in one of the harshest environments in the world. Now picture this: the sound of water gently flowing through stone channels, the soft splash as it hits its destination, nourishing crops, filling fountains, and even cascading over the terraces. You're standing near a large stone aqueduct, the work of thousands of hands over generations. The precision with which this water flows is something the Inca engineers had perfected. But how did they achieve this remarkable feat? What drove them to craft such a sophisticated system that could sustain not only their people but the entire empire? The answer might surprise you. It wasn't just about survival. Yes, water was vital for agriculture and the daily needs of the people, but there was something else at play, something even more fundamental to the Inca worldview. To the Incas, water wasn't just a resource, it was sacred. They believed that water had the power to purify, heal, and connect the physical world to the spiritual one. They worshipped the rivers, mountains, and lakes as deities, offering rituals and sacrifices to honor them. These rituals, performed at the sources of rivers or at special locations along the water's course, were deeply woven into the fabric of Inca life. Historians still debate the full extent of these water-based religious practices. Some believe that water's sacred role was directly tied to the agricultural cycle, with rituals performed to ensure the success of crops, while others suggest that the Inca elite used these religious beliefs to consolidate power, controlling access to water and dictating who could participate in the sacred rituals. Either way, water was a central element in both the daily lives of the Inca people and their broader spiritual practices. But it wasn't just about sacred rituals. Water played an essential role in the structure of Inca society. As we've seen before, the Inca built aqueducts to channel water through the empire, but the distribution of water was also a tool for social organization. In many areas, especially along the Sacred Valley, water systems were shared among communities. Each community had a designated responsibility for maintaining their section of the system, and the engineers themselves often came from different social classes, reflecting a communal approach to water management. This shared responsibility helped to ensure the efficient and equitable distribution of water across the empire, with no one person or group gaining control over the vital resource. Interestingly, there are still arguments among scholars about how the Incas decided who would have access to water. Some argue that it was based on the size of the community, or the specific needs of the agricultural land, while others suggest that it had more to do with social hierarchy, with the elite getting the best access to water and the most fertile land. Despite the ongoing debate, it's clear that the Inca water systems were central to their way of life and their success as an empire. In the highlands, where agriculture was more challenging due to the steep terrain, the Incas developed elaborate terracing systems. These terraces allowed them to farm on the mountainsides by creating flat surfaces where water could flow efficiently, turning steep hillsides into productive farmland. The terraces themselves were ingeniously constructed using stones and earth to create solid layered platforms that both supported crops and channeled water into the soil. As you look around, you can imagine the vast terraces stretching out before you, each one a careful work of art. The water diverted from the river and funneled through the aqueducts would reach each terrace, bringing life to the crops and ensuring that the people had enough to eat. The process was so efficient that it allowed the Inca Empire to sustain a population of tens of millions, thriving even in some of the most inhospitable terrain on Earth. Historians still argue whether the Incas were the first to develop such advanced irrigation techniques, or whether they were influenced by earlier civilizations. The evidence suggests that they built upon the knowledge of their predecessors, like the Moche or Nazca cultures, who had their own methods for managing water. Yet the Incas took these techniques to new heights, combining them with their unique understanding of the natural world and their spiritual connection to water, and in doing so they created a system that not only fed their people, but also connected them to the divine. As you stand here gazing out over the landscape, it's impossible not to be amazed by the scale of Inca engineering. The sheer thought of moving water across such vast distances through narrow valleys, rocky hillsides and unpredictable mountain landscapes seems nearly impossible. But for the Inca it was second nature. And what's even more astonishing is that much of their water infrastructure is still in use today, remarkably intact, considering its age and the challenges of the environment. One of the most impressive achievements was the construction of massive stone aqueducts that carried water to distant locations. These aqueducts were carefully crafted using perfectly cut stones that fit together with such precision that they required little to no mortar. The Inca engineers knew exactly how to work with the landscape, carefully diverting water to flow across their aqueducts at a controlled rate. These systems were designed to avoid erosion using sloped channels that allowed water to flow freely without washing away the surrounding soil. It's a technique that modern engineers still admire for its simplicity and effectiveness. Historians still argue about the materials and techniques the Incas used to ensure that these aqueducts remained intact for centuries. Some believe that the Inca engineers used a form of natural sealant to protect the stone, while others argue that the stones themselves were carefully chosen for their durability and resistance to water damage. Either way, the fact that these systems continue to function today speaks to the incredible foresight and craftsmanship of the Inca people. You might be wondering why go to all this trouble for water. The answer lies in the Incas' understanding of the delicate balance between man, nature, and the divine. Water wasn't just something to be used, it was something to be respected. In fact, water was often diverted from rivers and streams to flow through sacred areas or temples where it was believed to carry the blessings of the gods. For the Incas, water wasn't just a resource, it was a channel through which they could connect with their deities, ensuring the prosperity of their empire. It wasn't just about what the water could do for them, it was about what they could do with the water to honour their gods. The fountains, springs, and aqueducts that crisscrossed their cities and temples were more than just functional, they were ceremonial. For example, the sacred fountains of Machu Picchu were not only practical sources of water for the people, but also held deep religious significance. Every drop of water that flowed from them was seen as a gift from the gods, a sign of divine favour. In some parts of the empire, the flow of water was timed to coincide with religious festivals or agricultural cycles. In one such ceremony, water was used to cleanse the community and purify the crops. This practice was believed to not only bless the land with fertility, but to reaffirm the sacred relationship between the people and their gods. Water in this sense was both a practical resource and a spiritual conduit, helping the Incas maintain balance in their world. The precision with which the Incas managed their water systems also extended to their agricultural practices. As we've seen, they carefully controlled the flow of water to irrigate crops, but they also paid close attention to the timing of water delivery. Farmers knew that too much water could ruin crops while too little could leave the soil barren. The Inca engineers devised a system of canals and reservoirs that allowed them to store water for dry seasons, ensuring that the crops would continue to grow even when the riverbeds ran dry. But it wasn't just the everyday farmer who benefited from this system. The Inca nobility, the priests and the royal family all had access to the best water systems, ensuring their comfort and prosperity. Water played an essential role in maintaining the social hierarchy of the empire, as it was a resource that could be controlled and distributed according to status. This system wasn't just about survival, it was a key part of how the Inca maintained their grip on power, ensuring that the elite had access to the best resources. Now, as you stand beside one of the ancient stone aqueducts, imagine the rhythmic sound of water flowing steady and unbroken through the channels. It's easy to forget that these aqueducts were not just utilitarian, they were also the symbols of the Incas' prowess and their ability to work in harmony with the land. But while the impressive infrastructure is what stands out to us today, the real magic of Inca water engineering was in how it adapted to every aspect of life. These aqueducts were designed to deliver water directly to the fields where crops were grown. This is where the genius of the Inca engineers really shines. Unlike other ancient civilizations that relied on basic forms of irrigation, the Incas used their aqueducts to create a fine-tuned, almost scientific method of water distribution. This wasn't just about letting water flow freely, it was about managing the quantity and timing, ensuring that each plot of land received just the right amount of water. The Incas also paid great attention to the fact that the water had to flow downhill even when the land was anything but flat. To achieve this, they built their aqueducts with precise measurements to account for the steepness of the terrain, ensuring that water flowed at a steady rate without the risk of flooding. It's this careful calibration of water flow that still baffles historians. Some argue that they might have used advanced mathematics to make these calculations, while others believe they simply had a deep intuitive understanding of the natural world. When you think about it, this wasn't just about agricultural success, it was a matter of survival. The ability to manage water meant the difference between having enough food to feed the population or not. But in the Inca world, agriculture was more than just a necessity. It was tied directly to their spiritual and political beliefs. The Inca believed that the land itself was alive, and by nurturing it with water, they were ensuring that the land could sustain the people. This connection between water agriculture and the divine is further illustrated by the sacred agricultural terraces built in places like Ollantaytambo. These terraces were more than just rows of crops. They were sacred sites where water was carefully channeled to ensure the success of the harvest. The terraces were also a form of social organisation, with the elite overseeing the water distribution to ensure the continuity of Inca control over the land. You can picture it now. The terraces stretch out across the mountainside, each one an intricate network of stone and soil. Water flowing from aqueducts and channels reaches each terrace, nurturing the crops and reinforcing the power of the Inca Empire. And while the system was designed for practical reasons, it also served as a symbol of the divine connection between the Inca rulers and the gods. The ability to control water was seen as a divine gift, one that proved the Incas' special relationship with their gods. Historians still debate whether the Inca Empire could have survived without this intricate system of water management. Some suggest that without these innovations, the empire might not have been able to sustain its vast population or its power. Others argue that the Inca Empire might have thrived, but certainly not with the same level of prosperity and stability. One thing is for sure, the Inca engineers mastered the art of working with water in a way that continues to amaze modern-day scientists and engineers. As the sound of the river gently reaches your ears, you notice the subtle changes in the water's flow. It's almost as if the river has a rhythm, a beat, that the Inca engineers could tune into. Now imagine this rhythm being replicated across the entire empire. The Inca didn't just build water systems, they created entire water networks that were carefully coordinated to ensure that no community went without. This level of attention to detail wasn't just about survival. It was about creating an interconnected empire that thrived on the precise management of its resources. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Inca water systems was their use of stone. The Incas were master builders, and they used stone not just for construction, but for engineering purposes too. The aqueducts, fountains, and channels that crisscrossed the empire were made of perfectly cut stones, each one fitted with such precision that they required little to no mortar. The stones were chosen not only for their durability, but for their ability to withstand the wear and tear of flowing water. The result was a system that has stood the test of time, still operational in some places to this day. The process of selecting and shaping the stones is still a bit of a mystery. Some historians believe the Incas used primitive tools to shape the stones, while others argue that they had access to more advanced techniques. Either way, the fact remains that these stone aqueducts were built to last, providing a sustainable water supply for centuries. Even more impressive is the fact that the stones were so well fitted that the aqueducts could maintain their water flow without the need for repairs even after hundreds of years. But the Incas didn't just rely on stone for their aqueducts, they also utilised the natural landscape to their advantage. Rivers in the Andes aren't exactly easy to tame, they're fast-moving, often unpredictable, and can change course at a moment's notice. But the Incas worked with the rivers, not against them. They built their aqueducts and channels to follow the natural contours of the land, taking advantage of the slopes and elevation changes to create a steady flow of water. The careful planning and use of terrain made these water systems incredibly efficient, allowing water to flow with minimal effort even across long distances. Historians still debate the exact methods the Incas used to build these systems. Some believe they used advanced surveying techniques to measure the land, ensuring that the water would flow exactly where it was needed. Others suggest that the Incas simply relied on trial and error learning from experience as they built their empire. Regardless of the method, the result was the same. The Inca Empire became one of the most successful civilizations in the Americas, with a water management system that was second to none. The Inca engineers also had a deep understanding of the natural environment. They knew that the water systems had to be designed to handle the challenges of the Andean mountains, where the weather could be unpredictable and the landscape could shift dramatically. One of the key challenges was the fluctuation in water levels. During the rainy season, rivers could swell and flood, while during the dry season they could become almost non-existent. The Inca engineers designed their systems to account for these fluctuations, ensuring that water could be stored during the wet season and released as needed during the dry months. It was a delicate balance, and the Inca engineers managed it with incredible skill. This ability to harness water to use it efficiently and to ensure that it flowed evenly across the empire was one of the key reasons the Inca Empire was able to thrive in such a challenging environment. Water was the foundation of their agricultural systems, their social structure, and even their military logistics. Without it, the Inca might not have been able to sustain their vast population, maintain their complex societal hierarchy, or expand their empire as far as they did. Water wasn't just a resource for the Incas, it was a tool for empire building, and they used it like no other civilization before them. The sound of the rushing river beneath your feet is almost hypnotic now. As you walk beside it, you begin to realize the complexity of what you're witnessing. These weren't just water systems, they were carefully orchestrated networks that connected the various regions of the Inca Empire. The Inca engineers didn't just design water systems for one city or region, they planned for a sprawling empire that spanned across hundreds of miles. And in an empire of such vastness, the key to maintaining control over its resources was its ability to move water efficiently from one place to another, often over incredibly long distances. One of the most impressive achievements was the way the Incas constructed their reservoirs. These weren't just simple basins to hold water, they were massive strategically located storage systems that could capture and hold water during the rainy season for use during the dry months. But here's where it gets really interesting. These reservoirs were often built in areas that were difficult to reach, sometimes even at high altitudes where access to water was limited. The Incas were able to build reservoirs that not only stored water, but also helped regulate its flow to nearby settlements, ensuring that every community had access to this precious resource when they needed it most. Historians still argue about the exact techniques the Incas used to build these reservoirs. Some suggest that they used the natural topography of the land to their advantage, creating natural basins that would catch and store water. Others believe they used more advanced engineering methods, constructing reservoirs that were lined with stone or even sealed with clay to prevent leaks. Whatever the method, the result was the same. The Incas were able to harness water in a way that few civilizations had before them. The system was so efficient that it could support agriculture even in areas where rainfall was unpredictable. And because the Incas were able to store water for dry seasons, they were able to produce crops year-round. This gave the Inca Empire a significant advantage over other civilizations, allowing them to feed a growing population and ensure the stability of the empire. It's a testament to the ingenuity of Inca engineers that their water systems not only supported agriculture, but also enabled the empire to thrive in some of the most challenging environments on Earth. But the reservoirs weren't just practical. They had a deep cultural and spiritual significance as well. For the Incas, water was more than just a resource. It was a sacred gift from the gods. The reservoirs, along with the aqueducts and fountains, were often located in ceremonial spaces where water could be used in religious rituals. The Incas believed that water had the power to cleanse and purify, and they used it in various ceremonies to honour the gods and ensure the prosperity of the empire. In fact, some of the most important religious ceremonies in the Inca Empire involved water. One of the most significant was the Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun, which celebrated the sun god Inti. Water played a central role in this festival, with the Inca priests using sacred wells and fountains to offer water to the gods. The offering of water was seen as a way of maintaining the balance between the natural and spiritual worlds. The fact that the Incas were able to incorporate such a practical element as water into their religious practices shows just how deeply ingrained it was in their daily lives. As you walk beside the river, it's easy to understand why the Incas saw water as sacred. It's not just the physical element, it's the symbolism, the connection to the divine and the lifeblood of the empire itself. The way the Incas treated water, managing it with such reverence and skill, reflects their understanding of its power, both in a practical sense and a spiritual one. As you continue your journey along the ancient aqueducts and terraces, the landscape around you seems to hum with history. The precision of the Inca engineering is evident in every stone, every curve of the water's flow. It's almost as though the empire was built around this water, with every aspect of Inca society depending on the careful management of this precious resource. You can't help but feel a sense of awe as you imagine how the entire empire was sustained by these elaborate water systems which stretched across valleys, through mountains and into bustling cities. One of the most iconic examples of Inca water engineering is Machu Picchu. Nestled high in the Andes, this stunning citadel is not only a marvel of architecture, but also a testament to the Incas' ingenuity in managing water. The city's water systems were an integral part of its design. Fountains, wells, and even sophisticated drainage systems were incorporated into the city's layout, allowing water to flow smoothly through the entire site. Even today, scholars are amazed at how the Incas managed to transport water up such a steep mountainside, ensuring a constant supply for the people who lived there. Historians still debate the precise methods the Incas used to bring water to Machu Picchu. Some suggest that the water was brought up from nearby springs, using a series of channels and aqueducts, while others believe the Incas may have used innovative pumping systems to lift water from lower elevations. One thing is certain, though: the Incas didn't just see water as a practical necessity. They saw it as a symbol of their connection to the gods, and they built their city's water system accordingly. In fact, the water systems at Machu Picchu were so well designed that they didn't just serve the inhabitants of the city, they were also a key part of its religious life. Water was used in rituals to honour the gods, and it was believed to have healing and purifying powers. The fountains that dotted the city were not just functional, they were also sacred. Some scholars even suggest that the water flowing through these fountains was seen as a manifestation of the divine, a direct link between the physical world and the spiritual realm. Beyond Machu Picchu, the Incas constructed similar water systems in their other cities, including Cusco, the empire's capital. Cusco's water systems were equally as sophisticated, with channels and fountains that supplied the city's population with fresh water. The water was channeled into the city from surrounding hills and mountains using the same principles of precision engineering that made the Inca Empire so successful. The fact that the water systems in Cusco were designed to last for centuries speaks to the remarkable foresight of the Inca engineers. Water also played a vital role in the Inca agricultural system, particularly in the Sacred Valley. Here the Incas used advanced irrigation techniques to manage the flow of water to their crops. The valley's fertile soil was essential to feeding the empire, but without a reliable water supply it would have been impossible to sustain such large-scale agriculture. The Incas constructed a vast network of canals and terraces, directing water to the crops and ensuring that the land remained fertile. The success of the agricultural system was a direct result of the water management strategies developed by the Incas. Despite the success of these systems, scholars are still puzzled by how the Incas managed to create such an advanced water network without the use of modern tools. It's unclear whether they had access to advanced surveying techniques or whether their knowledge was passed down through generations of experience. Some historians argue that the Incas might have used a form of trial and error, slowly refining their techniques over time, while others suggest that they had a more systematic approach to engineering. Regardless of the method, the result was the same: a water management system that allowed the Inca Empire to thrive in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. As you stand beside the serene fountains of Machu Picchu, listening to the gentle sound of water cascading over the stone channels, it's almost as if time itself slows down. The air feels fresh and cool, the history of the place seems to pulse around you, and you begin to grasp the monumental role that water played in the Inca worldview. Water wasn't just something that flowed through the land, it was alive, sacred, and imbued with divine power. It flowed not just in the rivers, but also through the very veins of the empire, weaving together the spiritual and the practical. This sacredness of water is evident in how the Inca integrated it into their rituals. Sacred springs, fountains, and wells were common throughout the empire, often found in religious sites and used in ceremonies to honor the gods. For the Incas, water wasn't merely a tool to irrigate crops or quench thirst, it was a medium through which they communicated with their gods. The flowing water was symbolic of life itself, a manifestation of the life-giving force of the divine. In fact, many of the royal estates, such as the one at Sacsayhuaman near Cusco, were designed with water in mind. The elaborate fountains and channels in these sites were not only functional, but also spiritual. The water that flowed through these structures was often channeled from distant sources, creating a direct connection between the divine mountain waters and the royal court. This divine association reinforced the power of the ruling elite, as they controlled both the physical and spiritual flow of water within the empire. Scholars still argue over the exact spiritual significance of these sacred water systems. Some suggest that the Incas viewed water as a life force that connected them to the world of the gods, while others argue that the water was seen as a physical manifestation of the gods themselves. Regardless of the interpretation, it's clear that water was more than just a resource for the Incas. It was a central part of their religious and political life, interwoven into the very fabric of their empire. The Inca understanding of water as a sacred force is not only fascinating, but also speaks to their profound connection with nature. The way they saw the rivers and lakes as living entities mirrors the modern-day understanding of ecosystems as interconnected systems where each part plays a vital role in the health of the whole. For the Incas, water was the ultimate symbol of balance and harmony in the natural world, and their engineering efforts were meant to reflect and maintain this balance. Beyond the ceremonial use of water, the Incas also relied on it to maintain the stability of their society. For example, water was crucial in the Inca military campaigns. The ability to control the flow of water meant that the Inca could supply their armies with fresh water even in the harshest of environments. The armies would often march through remote highlands where water was scarce, but thanks to the aqueducts and reservoirs they had a steady supply wherever they went. Historians still debate the role that water played in Inca military strategy. Some believe that the ability to control water gave the Incas a distinct military advantage, allowing them to maintain strong and well-supplied armies. Others argue that water management was just one piece of the puzzle, with military success depending more on strategy and diplomacy. But no matter the interpretation, it's clear that the Incas' water management systems were essential for maintaining their power on the battlefield and in everyday life. What's truly remarkable is how this engineering prowess spread throughout the empire, touching every level of society. The people from peasants to nobility all benefited from the sophisticated systems the Incas created. The farmers, for example, were able to cultivate crops on terraces that would have otherwise been too steep to farm. The distribution of water wasn't just about ensuring crops grew, it was about making sure that the empire as a whole could sustain itself from the higher cities to the most remote mountain villages. You can almost picture the farmers now working on the terraces, their hands in the soil, as the water flows steadily over the land. The sense of unity between man, nature and the divine is palpable, and it's not hard to see how the water systems in all their complexity became a central pillar of the Inca identity, a symbol of their connection to the natural world and to the gods who watched over them. As you continue to walk beside the remnants of the Inca water systems, you can't help but marvel at how such intricate, effective designs have withstood the test of time. The aqueduct, though centuries old, still stand tall, their stones weathered but intact. The water that flows through them still nourishes the land in places, carrying with it not just life, but the legacy of a civilization that mastered the art of living in harmony with nature. The Incas understood that water was more than just a resource. It was a gift that had to be carefully managed, revered and passed down through generations. What's truly impressive about the Inca water systems is the level of foresight they exhibited. These systems were not only designed to meet the needs of the present, they were also built with sustainability in mind. The Incas recognized that their empire needed to adapt to the shifting rhythms of the land and the seasons, and that meant having a water system that could flex, bend and adjust according to the environment's demands. Water was harvested during the wet season and stored in reservoirs so that when the dry months arrived, the land would still thrive. This foresight allowed the Incas to continue growing crops, building cities, and sustaining their empire long after they had built their infrastructure. While we can see the results of this genius today, it's worth remembering that much of it was trial and error. The Inca engineers were not born with the knowledge of how to tame the Andean rivers. They learned through practice, observation, and an innate understanding of the land around them. Historians still speculate how much was passed down through generations, and how much was invented on the fly. Some argue that the Incas' keen observations of natural processes combined with their ability to adapt and improve played a key role in their successes. Still, even with their knowledge, the Inca engineers faced obstacles that modern systems rarely contend with. The rivers they worked with weren't just unpredictable in terms of flow. They also changed with the seasons, turning from raging torrents to trickling streams, creating challenges for consistency. Yet the Incas didn't just work around this, they found ways to make it work for them. The canals and aqueducts were designed with varying depths, widths, and slopes to account for these changes. And when the rainwater swelled in the rivers, the Inca engineers didn't panic. They engineered flood control systems that prevented damage to crops and infrastructure. Some historians argue that the Incas' ability to manage these fluctuations in water flow was one of the reasons for their long-lasting success as an empire. In an environment where the weather could change dramatically from year to year, stability in water management meant stability in agriculture, which in turn meant stability for society. In a world that was often defined by uncertainty, the Incas managed to create a reliable, sustainable way of life that could weather even the most difficult storms. You might be wondering how the Inca engineers could have possibly pulled this off without modern technology. The answer lies in the way the Incas approached problem solving. They didn't rely on advanced machines or complicated tools. Instead, they used simple, yet highly effective techniques like gravity and slope to make the water flow precisely where they wanted it to go. Their work wasn't based on high-tech gadgets. It was based on observation, trial and error, and the application of natural principles. That's not to say they didn't have tools like bronze and copper tools for shaping stone, but the simplicity of their approach was one of the keys to their success. One of the most fascinating aspects of Inca water engineering is how their systems connected different parts of their empire. The flow of water didn't just stay in one place, it was directed to where it was needed most. Whether it was sending water to faraway agricultural fields or to the urban centres for daily use, the Inca engineers ensured that every part of the empire had access to this vital resource. Their ability to create a unified functional system that spanned such a vast and varied landscape was no small feat. Looking around at the land, it's clear that the legacy of Inca water engineering isn't just in the stone aqueducts or the remnants of ancient terraces. It's in the way the Incas taught future generations the value of working with the land, not against it. They were true masters of sustainability, creating a system that worked with nature to benefit both people and the environment. As you listen to the quiet murmur of the water flowing through the ancient channels, you can almost feel the empire's pulse sustained by the same rivers that the Incas once revered and controlled. As you trace the path of the river through the ancient stone channels, the vastness of the Inca engineering becomes even clearer. These water systems were not only designed to feed the people and sustain agriculture, they were a cornerstone of the empire's very identity. In fact, water was so central to Inca culture that it influenced everything from architecture to religion to the very structure of the empire. The Inca understood that to maintain the empire's strength, they needed to harness not just the physical resources of the land, but the spiritual forces that governed the water itself. At the heart of the Inca Empire was the city of Cusco, which was not only the political centre of the empire, but also its spiritual hub. The city was laid out to mirror the shape of a puma, with water flowing along the pathways like veins of life, running through the body of the empire. The temples, palaces, and plazas in Cusco were designed around these sacred water systems, and many of them contained fountains or pools that were used in religious ceremonies. The water flowing through these fountains wasn't just water, it was believed to carry the power of the gods. Historians still debate the exact spiritual significance of water in the Inca Empire. Some suggest that water was seen as a divine force essential to the creation and maintenance of life. Others argue that it was more symbolic, representing the connection between the Inca rulers and the gods. Regardless of the interpretation, one thing is clear: water was sacred, and its management was not just a practical concern, it was deeply intertwined with the spiritual and political power of the empire. The significance of water can also be seen in the way it was distributed. Inca society was highly stratified, with the elite enjoying privileges that were not available to the common people. Water, like land, was a valuable resource, and its distribution was carefully controlled by the rulers. The elite had access to the best water sources, and they used this control to maintain their power. This wasn't just about irrigation, it was about maintaining the hierarchy of the empire. By controlling access to water, the Inca rulers ensured that their power was unchallenged, and they reinforced the idea that they were divinely chosen to rule. In contrast, the common people, while also benefiting from the Inca water systems, had less access to the most sacred sources. The water that flowed through the royal palaces and temples was believed to be imbued with divine power, while the water in the more humble parts of the empire was seen as more mundane, though still vital. This system of distribution reinforced the social order, with water becoming another way for the elite to assert their dominance over the masses. It was a reminder that in the Inca worldview, everything from the land to the rivers was ordered and controlled by the gods and by those who ruled on their behalf. It's not just the sacred use of water that is remarkable. It's the fact that the Incas were able to create such an efficient system of distribution that allowed them to support millions of people across such a vast and diverse landscape. The aqueducts, reservoirs, and canals were carefully designed to ensure that water reached every corner of the empire. In remote mountain villages where access to water would have been limited, the Incas built sophisticated water systems to bring water to the people. And in urban centres like Cusco, the water systems were even more elaborate, with fountains, baths, and public water sources that were used by the entire population. The Inca engineers were able to accomplish all of this without the advanced technologies we take for granted today. They didn't have bulldozers or excavators, nor did they have modern surveying instruments. What they did have was an incredible understanding of the natural world and the ability to work with the land rather than against it. The canals they built were not only functional, they were also beautiful, winding through the landscape in intricate patterns that complemented the natural features of the land. They used the slopes of the mountains to their advantage, creating a system of gravity-fed canals that required minimal maintenance. As you look out over the water flowing through the ancient channels, it's easy to see why the Inca believed water was a living force. It wasn't just something they used, It was something they respected, something they worshipped, and something they relied on for their very survival. The Incas understood that to master water was to master life itself, and in doing so they were able to create an empire that thrived for centuries, standing as a testament to their ingenuity, their respect for nature, and their deep connection to the divine. As you walk along the ancient stone paths, the rhythmic flow of the water beneath your feet serves as a quiet reminder of how deeply the Inca Empire was intertwined with the natural world. The Incas didn't just conquer the land, they mastered it. Water, as essential as air, was at the core of their empire's success. But the true brilliance of the Inca was not merely in their ability to harness water, it was in how they integrated it into every facet of their society. Inca agricultural terraces, some of the most enduring symbols of their engineering prowess, were built with the express purpose of utilizing the power of water to sustain crops. These terraces, stretching across the steep Andean slopes, were designed to slow down the water as it flowed downhill, allowing it to gently soak into the soil. Each terrace was perfectly designed to maximize water retention and minimize erosion. But it wasn't just about creating a sustainable farming system, it was about creating a system that reflected the harmony the Incas sought with nature. The terraces weren't merely functional, they were beautiful too. They were often adorned with ornamental plants and pathways, making them a sight to behold as they stretched across the mountainside. The water flowing through the canals and terraces was in a way the lifeblood of the Inca people. It nourished the crops that fed their population, it watered the crops that fed their livestock, and it was a vital part of their economy, enabling them to maintain a system of trade throughout their vast empire. In fact, the cultivation of crops through irrigation was one of the key reasons the Incas were able to support such a large population. The precise management of water allowed them to expand agriculture into the high altitudes of the Andes, where other civilizations might have struggled to grow food. Potatoes, maize, quinoa, and other crops flourished in this well-watered system, providing a steady food supply for both the common folk and the elite. But while water was central to the Inca agricultural success, it also played a more symbolic role. Water for the Incas was not simply a tool for survival, it was a sacred element that connected them to the divine. The Incas believed that water was a gift from the gods, and their reverence for it is reflected in the many temples, fountains, and sacred wells that were built throughout the empire. In these sacred spaces, water wasn't just a practical resource, it was a channel to the divine. Inca rulers were considered to be the sons of the sun, a title that underscored their connection to the divine. And as with any powerful rulers, they sought to reinforce their connection to the gods through rituals and ceremonies. The Incas used water in these ceremonies to offer thanks to the gods for their blessings. Whether it was pouring water into a sacred bowl, sprinkling it over the land, or offering it to the mountains, water was an essential part of their spiritual practices. It was believed to purify the land, cleanse the people, and ensure that the empire remained in favor with the gods. The role of water in Inca religious rituals wasn't just symbolic, it also had a practical purpose. In some regions, water was believed to carry the power of the sun god Inti. As part of the royal rituals, the water used in ceremonies was often blessed or purified, ensuring that the offerings were as potent as possible. The Incas believed that the waters of the rivers and fountains carried the divine essence of their gods, and to receive the water was to be blessed by them. This belief helped solidify the importance of water in both the political and religious life of the empire. Even the royal palaces and temples were designed to incorporate water into their layout. At the heart of many of these structures was a fountain, or a well, often surrounded by sacred gardens. These spaces were not only places of beauty, they were designed to represent the flow of life with water as the ultimate symbol of vitality and power. The Inca royal family had exclusive access to the best sources of water, further reinforcing their divine right to rule. You might wonder how these systems could possibly have lasted so long, given the challenging environment of the Andes. The answer lies in the Incas' remarkable ability to work with nature rather than trying to conquer it. Their systems of aqueducts, reservoirs, and channels were designed with the environment in mind. The Incas understood the natural flow of water and built their systems accordingly, ensuring that the water was both usable and sustainable. Their careful planning, combined with their reverence for water, allowed them to maintain these systems for centuries, feeding the empire and sustaining their way of life. As you continue walking along the ancient stone pathways, the cascading sound of water flowing through the channels becomes more pronounced, filling the air with a sense of timelessness. The water, once vital to the Inca civilization, continues to remind us of the deep connection they had with the land, the gods, and each other. The Inca engineers, who lived and worked in a time without modern tools, relied on an extraordinary combination of observation, trial and error, and spiritual belief to create systems that not only fed their people, but sustained their empire for centuries. One of the most striking features of Inca water systems was how they adapted to the unique topography of the Andean mountain range. In this region, steep slopes, rapid rivers, and unpredictable weather could make the very idea of building sustainable waterworks seem impossible. But the Incas were able to harness the power of water in ways that would impress even modern engineers. They designed water channels that followed the natural contours of the land, making use of gravity to carry water across long distances and preventing erosion in the process. What makes this feat even more impressive is the fact that the Inca Empire spanned such a diverse landscape. From the arid highlands to the lush cloud forests and the dry deserts of the coast, the Incas had to develop different strategies for water management depending on the region. In the high-altitude regions, they designed intricate terraces that not only slowed the flow of water, but also retained moisture in the soil, allowing crops to grow even in areas where water would otherwise be scarce. In the valleys and lower lands, they constructed larger canals and aqueducts which carried water for both irrigation and domestic use. But it wasn't just the elite and urban centres that benefited from these advanced water systems. The common people also had access to these resources. The Incas believed that water was a gift from the gods, and they made sure that it was distributed to all levels of society, from the royal palaces to the humble farming villages. This is another key element that contributed to the empire's success. By ensuring that everyone had access to clean water, the Incas were able to create a stable, self-sustaining society where agriculture flourished and resources were shared. The sacred role of water in the Inca worldview is also apparent in the many sacred springs, fountains and ritual sites that dot the empire. Water was believed to be a conduit between the physical world and the divine, and the Incas used it in numerous religious ceremonies. Sacred springs, often located near temples or shrines, were seen as gateways to the gods, places where offerings could be made to ensure good harvests, favourable weather, and the well-being of the people. The use of water in these ceremonies was seen not just as a physical act, but as a symbolic gesture of maintaining harmony with the natural world and the divine. In many ways, water was at the heart of the Inca understanding of the cosmos. For the Incas, the world was divided into three realms: the world above the heavens, the world below the underworld, and the world we live in, the terrestrial realm. Water was the medium that connected all these realms, flowing between them and carrying the power of the gods. It wasn't just the rivers and lakes that were sacred. Even the rain was considered to be a divine gift, a blessing that sustained life on earth. The Incas believed that rain could be summoned through rituals, and in some cases priests and rulers would perform ceremonies to ask for rain during dry spells. This belief system was reflected in the Inca agricultural cycle, which was intimately tied to the water systems they built. In the highlands, where water could be scarce during the dry season, the Incas used their water management systems to store rainwater and ensure a constant supply during the months when the rivers ran dry. Their ability to plan for and adapt to seasonal fluctuations in water availability was a key factor in their success as an agricultural civilization. Without these systems, it's unlikely that the Inca Empire could have sustained such a large population across such a vast and varied terrain. In this way, water became more than just a practical resource. It became a symbol of the Incas' deep connection to nature and the divine. The Incas understood that the natural world was not something to be conquered or controlled, but something to be worked with in order to achieve balance and harmony. Their success in managing the flow of water was a reflection of their broader philosophy that human life should be lived in harmony with the natural world, with respect for the forces that govern it. As you move further along, the quiet hum of the water flowing through the ancient channels feels almost meditative. It's a reminder that the systems the Incas created were not only technical marvels, but reflections of their worldview, a worldview where everything was interconnected. The Incas saw their empire not as an isolated entity, but as part of a vast living system, where the mountains, rivers, and even the clouds had roles to play. And water in this system was the lifeblood that kept everything flowing in harmony. One of the most remarkable features of Inca water management was their ability to create diverse yet interconnected systems across such a vast empire. They didn't just build aqueducts and reservoirs in cities, they also engineered sophisticated irrigation systems that stretched deep into the countryside. This wasn't just about providing water for agriculture, it was about ensuring that every community, no matter how remote, had access to the resources it needed to thrive. Take for instance the advanced systems they created for high-altitude farming. In the rugged Andean highlands, the Incas built extensive terraces that took advantage of both water and gravity. The terraces allowed water to flow evenly through the land, preventing soil erosion, while also ensuring that water was distributed evenly to all crops. These terraces weren't just functional, they were designed to blend seamlessly into the landscape, creating a stunning multi-layered patchwork of cultivated land that stretched high up the mountain slopes. The engineering behind these systems is nothing short of genius. Water would be brought from the rivers at the valley floor and channeled up to the high-altitude terraces, flowing through meticulously designed stone channels that allowed the water to move with ease and precision. These channels were carefully sloped, ensuring that water wouldn't pool and that it would spread evenly across the fields. The entire system was carefully planned to maximize efficiency and minimize waste. It's a testament to the foresight and ingenuity of the Inca engineers that these systems have survived centuries of wear and tear and still function today. And yet the ability to work with nature wasn't just about building these elaborate systems. It was about a fundamental belief that humans were stewards of the land, not its conquerors. The Inca approach to water management reflected their understanding that the earth-like water was something to be nurtured and respected. They believed that water had a soul, and that by working with the land and respecting the natural flow of water, they could live in harmony with the earth and the gods who ruled over it. This philosophy extended beyond the physical aspects of water management. The Inca also had a deep understanding of the ecological balance required to maintain a sustainable society. They recognized that the well-being of the land, the water, and the people were all interdependent. The Incas didn't just think about how to use the land, they thought about how to care for it, ensuring that future generations would be able to benefit from the same resources they had. Inca engineers were also skilled in designing and managing water systems for public use. While the elite had access to the most sophisticated systems, the common people were not left without. Public fountains, wells, and baths were an integral part of Inca cities, providing not only water for daily use, but also spaces for social interaction. The public baths were especially significant as they served as communal spaces where people could gather and purify themselves both physically and spiritually. Water in this sense was not just a resource, but a means of fostering community and maintaining health. Historians still argue over the precise methods used by the Incas to maintain such a complex system of water management. Some scholars suggest that the Incas used advanced surveying techniques to design their channels and aqueducts with such precision, while others believe that they relied on a more intuitive understanding of the land. What is clear, however, is that the Incas had an unparalleled ability to read the landscape and adapt their systems to the environment in a way that modern engineers can only admire. The fact that many of these systems continue to function to this day speaks to the brilliance of Inca engineering. But it's not just the physical structures that have endured, it's also the knowledge that has been passed down through generations. The Incas were masters of creating systems that worked in harmony with the environment, ensuring that water was available when it was needed most. The ability to manage water was not just a skill, it was a way of life deeply embedded in the cultural and spiritual fabric of Inca society. As you pause beside one of the ancient water channels, you can almost feel the legacy of the Inca engineers coursing through the land. The water still flows steady and unwavering, much like the empire that once harnessed its power. And while the Incas themselves may be gone, their understanding of the land and water of balance, harmony and sustainability continues to serve as a reminder of what can be achieved when we work in harmony with nature. As the gentle trickle of water continues beside you, there's a certain tranquility in the way the Inca engineers manage their natural resources. You can almost feel the presence of the ancient builders who crafted these systems. They didn't just look at water as something to be used and discarded. For the Incas, water was central to their civilization's survival, spiritual life, and the very structure of their empire. To understand how water influenced every aspect of their empire, it's essential to grasp just how deeply integrated it was into their social, political, and economic systems. One of the most profound ways in which the Incas incorporated water into their empire was through their economic model. The empire's vast network of irrigation canals allowed for year-round agricultural production, feeding millions. As we've seen, water wasn't just a tool, it was a way to manage and sustain the Inca economy. The ability to control the flow of water meant that the Incas could produce enough food to support a population spread across hundreds of miles. These agricultural systems were intricately designed to work in harmony with the land, and their success was directly linked to the abundance of water. It wasn't just about irrigation for crops, it was also about water being a valuable trade commodity. In the Inca Empire, the flow of water enabled the creation of thriving markets and trade routes. Farmers in distant regions could rely on water for their crops, and in turn they could send surplus produce to larger cities and trading hubs. The Incas also built networks of reservoirs and canals that connected different regions of the empire, ensuring that trade could flow smoothly and without interruption. Water facilitated movement across the land, enabling the exchange of goods and ideas. As you stand here watching the steady flow of water through the ancient channels, you realize how crucial this network was to the empire's ability to maintain its strength. The Incas didn't just build an empire, they built an empire that was supported by the very land and water it controlled. In many ways, their understanding of water, its flow and its use in both daily life and commerce, was one of the key factors that allowed the Inca Empire to thrive for centuries, despite its remote location and harsh landscape. But the economic significance of water wasn't limited to agriculture and trade. Water also played a vital role in the religious life of the empire. The Incas saw their rulers as divinely ordained, and they believed that water was a direct link to the gods. In their worldview, the flow of water was not random or merely practical, it was controlled by divine forces. The Inca priests, who were responsible for maintaining the balance between the human and divine worlds, often performed rituals involving water. This connection between water and the gods was reinforced by the ceremonial use of water in temples, fountains, and sacred springs. One of the most fascinating aspects of Inca water rituals was their timing. The Incas had a deep understanding of the natural cycles, and their rituals were often aligned with the agricultural calendar. Water was offered to the gods at specific times during the planting and harvesting seasons, ensuring that the gods would bless the crops and the people with abundant rain and fertile soil. The Incas believed that if they honoured the gods with proper rituals, the rivers would flow with divine power, providing them with the sustenance they needed. Inca water rituals were also linked to the spiritual connection between the people and their land. The rivers, lakes, and springs were seen as sacred entities inhabited by powerful spirits. The Incas believed that the health of the land and the success of their crops depended on maintaining a harmonious relationship with these water spirits. This belief was so deeply ingrained that the Inca rulers were responsible for overseeing water rituals, ensuring that the land remained fertile and that the empire's connection to the divine was maintained. And it wasn't just the people in the cities who participated in these rituals. Water was central to life in every Inca community, from the smallest farming villages to the grand palaces of the emperor. The people believed that the land, the rivers, and the mountains were all interconnected, and that the well-being of the entire empire depended on keeping this balance in harmony. Water, as the conduit between the gods and the people, became the essential element that linked the entire empire, connecting its economic, political, and spiritual life in a way that allowed it to function as a unified whole. As you stand here by the water, you begin to understand just how essential water was to every aspect of Inca life. It wasn't just about survival, it was about thriving. The Inca understood that their empire depended on water not just as a resource, but as a sacred force. And in that understanding, they built an empire that was able to thrive for centuries using water as both a practical tool and a divine gift. As you pause by the water, watching the sunlight play across the surface, it becomes increasingly clear how central water was to the very structure of Inca society. It wasn't just an economic resource nor merely a tool for survival. Water was a constant presence in the spiritual and social fabric of the empire. The Incas' ability to integrate water into every aspect of their civilization is a testament to their sophisticated understanding of the world. In every sense, they saw water as a conduit not only for life but also for prosperity, harmony, and even divine favour. Inca society was deeply hierarchical, and the management of water was no exception. At the very top, the Sapa Inca, the emperor, was regarded as a living god, and it was believed that the ruler's connection with the divine influenced the flow of water, much like it did the health of the land and the well-being of the people. In the Sapa Inca's palaces, fountains were often an essential feature, symbolizing the ruler's divine right to control both the physical and spiritual flow of resources. These fountains weren't just decorative, they were sacred spaces where the emperor could make offerings to the gods to ensure the continued prosperity of the empire. Water was not just a luxury for the elite, though. It was integral to the functioning of Inca society at every level, ensuring that agriculture, trade, and public life could thrive. The Incas were keenly aware of the power that came with controlling water, and as a result they took extraordinary measures to ensure it was distributed evenly throughout their empire. This wasn't just about sustaining agriculture, it was about maintaining social stability. Access to water was a direct reflection of one's status in the empire, but the state's role in managing water ensured that no one went completely without. Public fountains were a feature of many Inca cities, including Cusco, where the nobility and common folk alike could gather water. This public access was symbolic of the empire's ideological stance that the empire existed for the good of all its people, with the Sapa Inca as a divine figure, ensuring the welfare of everyone. In many ways, these public fountains and communal water sources were an early form of social welfare designed to ensure the survival and prosperity of the population, while reinforcing the collective identity of the Inca people. Water also played a significant role in the Inca military. During campaigns, the ability to manage water sources was vital for the survival of troops, especially in the arid areas of the empire. Aqueducts and wells were strategically placed to ensure that soldiers and workers could have fresh water as they built roads or prepared for battle. The military also relied on water to move goods and materials through the empire. Waterways often served as routes for transporting goods from agricultural products to the treasures of the empire. The military's ability to control these routes was essential to maintaining the empire's strength and cohesion. In remote high-altitude settlements, the need for efficient water management was even more pressing. There, the Incas built stone aqueducts and channels that flowed through the mountainous terrain, providing access to water where it would have been nearly impossible to find. These aqueducts were often built in a way that allowed the water to flow smoothly, even in the harshest conditions, ensuring that every settlement had a reliable water supply. In a society that spanned thousands of miles where the land was both rugged and diverse, this infrastructure was nothing short of extraordinary. Historians still argue whether the Incas developed this advanced engineering all on their own, or whether they built upon the knowledge of earlier civilizations like the Moche or the Nazca. What is undeniable, however, is the fact that the Incas were able to create an unparalleled system of water management that enabled their empire to thrive for centuries. They achieved this through a combination of careful observation, trial and error, and a profound understanding of their natural environment. Whether they used advanced mathematical techniques or simple practical knowledge, the result was a system that allowed the empire to flourish. This interconnectedness between the land, water and people reflects a broader worldview. The Incas believed that the natural world was not separate from human life, but was intimately connected with it. Their treatment of water as both a physical and spiritual resource illustrates this understanding. They didn't just work with water they revered, it saw it as sacred and integrated it into every aspect of their lives. In this way, the Inca Empire wasn't just a political entity. It was a living system, a carefully orchestrated balance between humanity and the natural forces they respected and revered. And water, the element that flowed through it all, was the life force that kept it running smoothly. From the smallest farmer to the most powerful ruler, water was something that tied everyone together, a symbol of the unity that made the Inca Empire so successful. As you stand here by the quiet flow of water, the enormity of what the Incas accomplished starts to settle in. It's easy to get caught up in the grandeur of their temples and palaces, but their true genius lay in their understanding of the environment, the delicate balance between nature and society. Water was at the centre of this balance, flowing through their cities, connecting communities and sustaining life. The Inca Empire was built not just on stone and gold, but on the careful management of water, which was quite literally the lifeblood of the empire. One of the most striking aspects of Inca water management was its decentralization. The empire was vast, spanning rugged mountains, dry deserts and lush valleys. Each region presented its own set of challenges for water management. Yet the Incas were able to adapt and create systems that worked with the natural features of the land. They built canals that followed the natural slope of the mountains, used stone aqueducts to carry water to the highest terraces, and constructed reservoirs to store water for the dry months. In this way, they were able to create a network of water systems that served the entire empire, even in areas where access to water would have been otherwise impossible. These systems weren't just about providing water for agriculture and daily life. They were about creating a sense of unity across the empire. The flow of water became a symbol of the flow of life itself, connecting disparate regions and people. The Incas understood that a unified empire required a unified system of resources, and water was the key to this unity. Whether in the remote Andean highlands or the bustling city of Cusco, water was the thread that tied the empire together. Interestingly, water also served as a tool for communication. In the absence of written language, the Incas relied on the flow of water to send messages. When an aqueduct was altered or a reservoir built, it was a statement of intent, a message to both the people and the gods. The flow of water carried not just practical significance, but symbolic meaning. The care and control over water systems were ways in which the emperor communicated his divine authority to the people. Just as the Sapa Inca was seen as the link between the heavens and the earth, the water systems were the physical manifestation of this connection. Water was also used in the rituals that upheld the legitimacy of Inca rule. As the Sapa Inca was believed to be the direct descendant of the sun god Inti, the ceremonies surrounding water were seen as a way to reinforce his divine right to rule. In these rituals, water was offered as a way of thanking the gods for their blessings, as well as requesting their continued favour. Sacred springs, fountains, and wells were not only practical, they were sacred spaces where the divine and the human worlds met. But it wasn't just the elite who had access to these sacred water sites. While the nobility might have had exclusive access to the finest aqueducts and fountains, the Incas were mindful of their agricultural roots. Public fountains were scattered throughout their cities and towns, providing fresh water to the common people. In this way, water became a shared resource uniting everyone in the empire. It wasn't just a matter of survival, it was a matter of social equity. The importance of water can also be seen in the way the Incas managed their agricultural systems. In the high-altitude regions of the Andes, where water was scarce, the Incas designed irrigation systems that maximized water retention and minimized waste. These systems weren't just about giving crops what they needed. They were about nurturing the land, ensuring that future generations could continue to benefit from the same resources. The terraces, aqueducts, and reservoirs weren't just about today's harvest. They were about the long-term sustainability of the entire empire. This careful stewardship of water allowed the Inca Empire to endure in a way that many other ancient civilizations did not. They didn't just extract resources from the land they nurtured, it maintained it and worked with it. The empire's longevity wasn't just due to its military might or its architectural feats, but to its remarkable understanding of the environment and its ability to create a self-sustaining, interconnected system of resources. The water that flowed through their aqueducts wasn't just a vital resource, it was the very foundation of their success. As you listen to the soft murmur of the water, it becomes clear that the Inca Empire's story is as much about the natural world as it is about human ingenuity. The Inca people didn't just build cities and monuments, they built a sustainable system that worked in harmony with the land. They knew that the key to their survival was not in dominating the earth, but in living alongside it, respecting the forces of nature, and ensuring that future generations could thrive as they had. As you continue walking along the ancient waterways, it's easy to see how water shaped not just the physical landscape, but also the very heart of Inca civilization. The rivers and aqueducts weren't just routes for travel or tools for agriculture. They were the veins that carried life throughout the empire. Wherever you look, water appears as a guiding force leading you from the sacred mountains to the royal palaces, from the remote agricultural terraces to the bustling urban centres. The Inca understood that water was not just a resource, but a vital element that connected all aspects of life from the common farmer to the emperor. Water played a key role in the Incas' engineering achievements. Whether it was the design of terraced farming systems that relied on the careful distribution of water, or the construction of aqueducts that spanned miles to deliver water to remote settlements, the Incas were masters of creating systems that utilized the natural flow of water. Their engineering solutions weren't just practical, they were works of art blending seamlessly with the environment. The stone aqueducts that still stand today are a testament to the Incas' skill in working with their environment, using simple tools and materials to craft something that would endure for centuries. What's striking about these water systems is the way the Incas combined practicality with spirituality. Water wasn't simply a physical resource, it was a divine gift, a powerful force that connected the people to their gods. In many ways, the Inca Empire was built around this understanding. The way they used water for irrigation, for drinking, for ceremonies, it all tied back to their belief that they were part of a larger interconnected system of life. Their water systems were a direct reflection of their worldview, a worldview in which balance, harmony, and respect for the natural world were paramount. Inca water systems also demonstrated an incredible level of foresight. The empire was built across a vast range of environments, from the high Andean mountains to the coastal deserts. Water was not always easy to come by, and the Incas had to adapt their water management systems to suit each unique region. In the highlands, where rainfall was limited, the Incas created elaborate terracing systems to slow the flow of water and capture as much of it as possible for their crops. In the valleys where flooding was a concern, they designed canals that could divert excess water to prevent damage to crops and infrastructure. This adaptability allowed the empire to thrive in some of the most challenging environments on Earth. The sacredness of water also extended to the way it was used in daily life. In every corner of the empire, from the royal palaces in Cusco to the far-flung agricultural terraces, water was treated with reverence. It wasn't just about drinking it or using it for crops, it was about respecting its power, understanding its role in the balance of life, and using it as a means of connecting with the gods. Fountains and wells were often located at the heart of Inca cities, not only as practical water sources, but as sacred sites where rituals and offerings could take place. The Sapa Inca, the emperor, would perform ceremonial acts with water to ensure the prosperity of the land and people. Water wasn't just a commodity, it was an offering, a gift, and a connection to the divine. Historians still debate the exact methods the Incas used to build and maintain their water systems, but what's undeniable is that their success in managing water allowed the empire to flourish for centuries. The combination of engineering expertise, spiritual reverence, and practical necessity enabled the Incas to create a network of water systems that reached from the highest mountains to the farthest corners of their empire. Water flowed through the empire, sustaining its people and connecting its regions just as it had for centuries before the empire's fall. The fact that many of these systems are still in use today speaks volumes about the ingenuity of Inca engineers. But more than that, it speaks to the enduring legacy of a people who saw water as more than just a resource. They saw it as a lifeline, a sacred element that was essential to the survival and prosperity of their empire. The way they managed their water systems was not just about survival, it was about creating a lasting civilization, one that lived in balance with the land and the natural world. As you sit by the water's edge, listening to its gentle flow, it's easy to imagine the people who once relied on these systems. Farmers working their fields, priests conducting rituals, and engineers ensuring that the flow of water continued uninterrupted. The water still flows just as it did centuries ago, reminding us that the Inca Empire, though long gone, left behind a legacy that continues to endure. The Incas understood that the true power of an empire lies not just in its military might or its wealth, but in its ability to harmonize with nature and create systems that last beyond the limits of time. As you sit quietly by the flowing water, a sense of peace settles over you, accompanied by a profound respect for the engineers who built this incredible system. The water has seen centuries pass, and yet it continues its journey through the intricate network of aqueducts, canals, and terraces the Incas so carefully crafted. It is a testament to the remarkable foresight and skill of the Inca engineers who understood that water was more than a mere resource. It was the foundation of their civilization, a symbol of their connection to the earth, the gods, and each other. What's striking is how the Inca water systems were deeply integrated into every aspect of daily life. These systems weren't just about keeping crops irrigated or ensuring that cities had enough water. They were part of a larger, deeply spiritual system that connected the Inca people to their land and to the divine. Water was a gift from the gods, and the Incas treated it with the reverence it deserved. The way they built their water systems reflected not just their engineering prowess, but their belief that they were part of a greater cosmic order, a divine balance that had to be maintained. In this way, water wasn't just a practical matter, it was a sacred act. The Incas understood that to live in harmony with the land they had to care for, respect it, and ensure its sustainability for future generations. This philosophy extended beyond just the use of water for farming or drinking. It was about working with nature, not against it, and creating systems that allowed the empire to flourish without depleting its resources. The Incas were the stewards of the land, and their success lay in their ability to create a sustainable, balanced society where every drop of water had meaning. One of the most fascinating aspects of Inca water management is how they were able to maintain such a complex system over such a vast empire. The Incas didn't have modern surveying tools or sophisticated technology. Instead, they relied on a profound understanding of the natural environment passed down through generations. They learned to read the land, understand the rhythms of the rivers, and design their water systems accordingly. The fact that so many of these systems are still functioning today speaks to the brilliance of their engineering and their deep connection to the land. The way the Inca engineers were able to balance the practical needs of their empire with their spiritual beliefs is a lesson in sustainability. They understood that water wasn't just about quenching thirst, it was about preserving life, ensuring that future generations could continue to thrive as they had. This mindset of stewardship extended to every part of Inca society. From the noble elite to the humble farmer, everyone relied on the same water systems. And just as the Inca rulers saw themselves as the divine caretakers of the empire, so too did the people see water as a sacred responsibility. Water played a key role in the Inca economy as well. As we've seen, the ability to irrigate crops, provide fresh water for cities, and support trade routes was essential to the empire's success. Water made the agricultural system sustainable and allowed for surplus production that could be traded or stored for times of drought. In a region as diverse as the Andean highlands, with its vast mountains, valleys, and deserts, the ability to control the flow of water was the key to the Inca Empire's prosperity. Water, however, wasn't just about economics. It was also central to the empire's military success. The Inca Empire was built on expansion, and maintaining control over water sources was essential for ensuring the stability of conquered territories. Water provided the logistical support for armies on the move, and the empire's engineers were skilled in building systems that could support military campaigns. From aqueducts that brought water to fortresses in the mountains to the creation of wells and reservoirs along the Inca road system, water was a strategic asset in every sense. And yet, despite its vital role in the success of the empire, water remained something that all people could share. The Inca understood that water had to be equitably distributed for society to function. In this way, water wasn't just an imperial tool, it was a social equalizer. The public fountains and reservoirs, the shared irrigation systems, and the communal practices surrounding water all reflected the Incas' belief in the collective good. Water, like the land, belonged to everyone, and it was through its equitable distribution that the empire maintained its unity and strength. As you sit beside the water, it's easy to imagine the generations of people who lived their lives around these systems. The Incas didn't just build monuments to their power, they built a civilization that was deeply connected to the earth, to the elements, and to each other. The empire may have fallen, but the lessons they taught about the importance of water sustainability and respect for nature continue to resonate today. The water still flows, and in that flow, the legacy of the Inca engineers lives on. As you stand at the edge of one of the ancient canals, the water flowing steadily beneath you, it's almost as if time has slowed down, allowing you to fully absorb the enormity of the Inca Empire's accomplishments. You begin to realize that for all their political and military might, the Incas were first and foremost masters of sustainable living. Their ability to harness the power of water wasn't simply about survival, it was about thriving in harmony with the world around them. They understood the deep connection between the earth, its resources, and the people who inhabited it, creating a civilization that flourished for centuries. The Incas recognized that water wasn't just something that fell from the sky or flowed through rivers, it was a resource that needed to be nurtured, respected, and maintained. They didn't just create infrastructure to deliver water, they designed a system that integrated the land and the people into the equation. They understood that water management wasn't just an engineering challenge, it was a spiritual practice, a way to live in balance with nature. What is perhaps most remarkable is the sheer scale of the water systems the Incas created. From Machu Picchu to Cusco, from the Sacred Valley to the remote highlands, their water systems spanned thousands of miles, serving millions of people. And yet, despite this vast network, there was an incredible level of local adaptation. Each community had its own water system designed to meet its specific needs, but all of these systems were linked together by the central belief that water belonged to everyone and that it was the collective responsibility of the empire to ensure that all had access to it. One of the most impressive examples of Inca water systems is the aqueducts that flowed through the Sacred Valley. These aqueducts were designed to transport water from distant mountain springs to the agricultural terraces below. What makes these aqueducts so extraordinary is not just their size or complexity, but their ability to deliver water with such precision. The Inca engineers used the natural landscape to their advantage, designing the aqueducts to flow with the contours of the land using gravity to keep the water moving. This careful planning ensured that the water would reach every part of the valley, irrigating crops and sustaining the people. Water was not just a tool for agriculture, however. It was also a source of power, a way to maintain control over the empire. Inca rulers understood that to maintain their dominance, they had to control not only the land, but also the resources that flowed through it. Water was one of the most important of these resources, and the ability to manage it gave the Sapa Inca unparalleled influence over the empire. By controlling water, The emperor controlled the land, the people, and the very flow of life itself. This control over water wasn't just about maintaining power, it was also about maintaining harmony. The Incas understood that the key to a successful empire was not just the ability to conquer and control, but the ability to maintain balance. The careful management of water was part of this balance. Water to the Incas was a living entity that had to be respected. They knew that if they took too much from the land would fight back, and so they treated water with reverence, creating systems that were as sustainable as they were impressive. It's easy to see how the Inca water systems were so central to their success. Without water, there could be no agriculture, no trade, no population growth. Water was the foundation of the empire's economy, and the Incas understood that to maintain their empire, they had to ensure that the land was nurtured and that its resources were used wisely. The success of the Inca Empire in many ways depended on the careful balance of water agriculture and respect for nature. But perhaps the most profound lesson we can learn from the Incas' mastery of water is the importance of sustainability. Today, as we face challenges related to climate change, water scarcity, and environmental degradation, we can look to the Incas as a model for how to live in harmony with the earth. They didn't see water as something to be exploited. They saw it as something to be cherished, something to be shared, and something to be managed responsibly. As you sit beside the water, the quiet flow beneath you serves as a reminder of the Incas' legacy, an enduring legacy that teaches us the importance of balanced sustainability and respect for the resources that sustain us. The water flows on just as it did centuries ago, carrying with it the wisdom of an empire that understood the value of living in harmony with the land. As the water continues its journey through the ancient aqueducts and canals, there's a sense of timelessness to it. The Incas, who once carefully engineered these systems to feed and sustain their vast empire, are long gone. Yet their legacy flows on silent but ever-present. This is the remarkable power of water. It doesn't just sustain life in the moment it endures, it carries memories and teaches lessons across the ages. You can almost hear the echoes of the past of those who built and used these water systems. Imagine the farmers on the terraces carefully guiding water to their crops, their faces marked with the hard work of survival, but also with pride in the systems they'd inherited. The water that flowed through these aqueducts wasn't just life-giving, it was a testament to the Incas' deep understanding of nature, their respect for the land and their determination to live in balance with it. One of the most awe-inspiring aspects of Inca water engineering was its innovation and adaptability. The Incas didn't have access to modern tools or advanced technology, yet they created some of the most sophisticated water management systems the world had ever seen. They took full advantage of the natural landscape, using gravity to guide water from mountain springs to the distant fields below. The aqueducts they constructed weren't just functional, they were an integral part of the landscape, flowing through the valleys alongside roads and across the terraced fields. Each canal and aqueduct was designed with the care and precision that reflected the Inca worldview, where everything was interconnected, where the land, the people and the gods all played a role in sustaining life. Historians still argue about how the Incas achieved such precision. Some believe they used simple tools and extensive knowledge of the land to create these systems, while others suggest that there may have been an advanced understanding of mathematics and engineering at play. But what is clear is that the Incas had a profound connection to their environment. They didn't just build for the present, they built for the future. The water systems they created were not just about meeting the immediate needs of their people. They were designed to ensure the long-term sustainability of the empire. The Incas knew that the earth was a delicate balance, that water was both a gift and a responsibility. The way they managed their water systems reflected this understanding. They didn't just draw from the rivers, they worked with them. The water flowed through the land in a way that enhanced the natural environment rather than disrupting it. The terraces they built to slow and direct the flow of water were not only practical, they were beautiful, creating a harmonious landscape that blended seamlessly with the natural world. The Inca Empire at its height was a testament to the idea that human civilization doesn't have to dominate nature, but rather it can work with it to create something lasting. Inca society, like their water systems, was built on cooperation and collective effort. The construction and maintenance of these water systems were not the work of a single person, but of entire communities coming together for the common good. This collective approach was a cornerstone of the Inca Empire: shared resources, shared responsibility and shared benefits. Whether it was the high-altitude farming terraces or the grand fountains in the cities, water was something that belonged to everyone regardless of status. The Incas understood that their empire's success depended not just on the elite, but on the cooperation and participation of all their people. Water, as it always has, continued to flow in Inca society, sustaining crops, powering ceremonies, and bringing people together. But what's most fascinating is the spiritual role water played in their worldview. For the Incas, water was a direct link to the divine. It wasn't just something they controlled, it was something they revered. Sacred springs, fountains, and wells dotted the empire, and these were not simply sources of water, but places of worship and connection. The Incas believed that the gods resided in the water, and by offering their rituals and prayers, they ensured that the flow of water and with it life would continue. Water rituals were central to Inca religious life. Priests would perform ceremonies at the sacred wells and fountains, offering thanks to the gods for the abundance of water and asking for blessings. The flow of water in this context was seen as a divine gift that had to be cared for and preserved. The rituals surrounding water were as much a part of the empire's success as the systems themselves. Through these ceremonies, the Inca people reaffirmed their bond with the land and the divine forces that shaped their world. As you watch the water flow in front of you, it's hard not to feel the weight of this connection between the physical and the spiritual. The Incas, in their wisdom, knew that their prosperity was not just about conquering lands and peoples. It was about living in balance with the natural world and honouring the divine forces that sustained them. Water, the most basic and life-sustaining element, was their conduit to that divine harmony. And that connection, forged through centuries of careful stewardship, continues to flow, reminding us of the wisdom of the Incas and the enduring power of the elements they so revered. As you sit by the ancient water channels, feeling the cool breeze of the high Andes brush against your face, it's hard not to appreciate the deep wisdom embedded in the Incas' approach to life. The land, the water, the people, they were all part of one interconnected system. This understanding of interdependence, where every element of the ecosystem was valued and respected, is perhaps the greatest legacy of the Inca civilization. The mastery of water, something so fundamental to their survival, was a symbol of their larger philosophy, balance, sustainability, and respect for nature. The Inca Empire, for all its grandeur and military conquests, was also a triumph of ecological management. The Incas understood that empires could not be built simply on conquest and riches. They had to be built on a foundation of resources that were renewable, sustainable, and shared. This understanding of the earth as a living, breathing entity that must be nurtured, not depleted, was a guiding principle for their civilization. One of the most impressive aspects of Inca water systems was the way they not only sustained human life, but also ensured the longevity of the empire. Water management was never seen as a short-term solution. The Incas built their aqueducts, canals, and terraces with an eye toward the future. They knew that the stability of their empire depended on the health of the land, and they took great care to preserve it. They didn't just extract from the earth, they worked with it, creating systems that allowed the land to thrive while also supporting the needs of a growing population. This long-term thinking extended beyond just agriculture. Water was also central to the Inca transportation network. In a vast empire like the Incas, where roads wound through rugged mountains and dense forests, water played an essential role in facilitating trade and communication. Rivers and canals were used as routes for transportation, enabling goods to move more easily across the empire. The Incas understood that efficient transportation was key to maintaining an interconnected society, and water was the most reliable and cost-effective means to do so. In a time without modern machines or technology, the Inca engineers had to rely on ingenuity, patience, and a deep knowledge of their environment. They didn't have the luxury of trial and error that we might have today. They didn't simply build aqueducts and canals, they studied the land, read the flow of the rivers, and designed systems that would not only work in the present, but continue to function well into the future. The precision with which they built these systems is awe-inspiring, and the fact that many are still in use today speaks to the brilliance of their designs. It's clear that water was more than just a commodity for the Incas. It was a symbol of their understanding of the world, their reverence for the gods, and their sense of responsibility for the future. They saw water not just as something to be used, but as something to be cherished, protected, and shared. Their water systems were more than just a physical infrastructure. They were a reflection of their values, their beliefs, and their vision for a sustainable, thriving empire. The spiritual role of water can't be overstated. As you sit beside the water, it's easy to imagine the ceremonies that took place at the sacred fountains, where priests would make offerings and ask the gods for blessings. Water was the medium through which the Incas communicated with the divine. It was believed that the flow of water carried the prayers and offerings of the people, directly to the gods, ensuring the continued prosperity of the empire. This sacred connection between water and the divine was at the heart of Inca religion and governance. Water's importance was also reflected in the way it shaped social and political life. The ability to manage water was a marker of power. The Sapa Inca, the emperor, was not just a political leader, but a spiritual figure believed to be the child of the sun god. As such, he was the guardian of the water and the land. The control of water sources symbolized the emperor's divine right to rule, and the management of water was a crucial part of maintaining the social order. The Incas were not just rulers of people, they were stewards of the earth responsible for the well-being of the land and the people who lived on it. Even in the most remote corners of the empire, water systems reflected the central tenets of Inca society. Every community, whether large or small, relied on the shared responsibility of maintaining these systems. It was through this communal effort that the Inca Empire was able to sustain itself, creating a network of interconnected people and places. Water in this sense was not just a physical resource, it was a social glue, a symbol of unity, cooperation, and shared responsibility. As you look out over the land, the water still flows just as it did in the time of the Incas, and while the empire itself may have crumbled, its understanding of nature and its respect for water continue to resonate today. The Incas left behind not just a legacy of monuments and cities, but a timeless lesson in the importance of living in harmony with the earth. The water systems they built are a testament to the power of sustainable living, a legacy that continues to flow through the land, reminding us of the wisdom of those who understood that the survival of a civilization depends not just on its ability to conquer, but on its ability to care for the world that sustains it. The water flows quietly, almost peacefully through the ancient aqueducts and channels, as you stand on the banks reflecting on the remarkable way the Incas engineered not just their infrastructure, but their entire way of life around it. Their approach to water was more than just an engineering marvel, it was a worldview. The very design of the empire was shaped by the need to manage this essential resource, and in turn water became a symbol of life, unity, and divine order. As you continue along the ancient pathways, you begin to notice the way the landscape has been transformed. The terraces once used for farming now stand as stone monuments to the Incas' ingenuity, but they also speak of a deeper connection to the land. These terraces weren't just a way to maximize water efficiency, they were a reflection of the Incas' belief in living in harmony with the earth. Each stone laid, each channel carved was part of a greater plan to ensure that the resources of the land could support the needs of their people now and for generations to come. The water that flowed through the aqueducts wasn't just for irrigation, it was the lifeblood of the empire, sustaining not only the crops, but also the people who tended to them. In the high-altitude valleys where the Incas built their intricate agricultural systems, the water that flowed through the canals was carefully managed to prevent erosion, maximize crop yields, and ensure that the land remained fertile. The Incas understood that the earth was not an inexhaustible resource, and they were careful stewards of the land, ensuring that the water used for farming would replenish itself season after season. In this sense, the Incas' approach to water was revolutionary. They didn't simply extract from the earth, they worked with it, maintaining a sustainable relationship between people and nature. Unlike many modern societies that often take the earth's resources for granted, the Incas' approach was founded on the principle of balance. Their engineering projects were designed to work in harmony with the natural world, ensuring that every drop of water served a purpose, whether it was nourishing crops, providing drinking water, or supporting the spiritual practices of the people. What stands out as truly remarkable is how this understanding of water extended into every facet of Inca life. It was not just a resource for farmers and cities, it was deeply woven into the fabric of Inca society. The sacred fountains and wells were not just for practical use, they were places of spiritual significance where offerings could be made to the gods. Water rituals were central to Inca religious practices, with water believed to have the power to cleanse, heal, and purify both the land and the people. Every drop carried with it the hope for a prosperous harvest, a bountiful year, and a successful reign under the watchful eyes of the gods. Water was not simply a physical element to be manipulated, it was a divine force, and the Incas treated it as such. It connected them to their gods, to the earth, and to each other. This reverence for water and the rituals surrounding it created a cohesive society where everyone shared in the responsibility of maintaining the balance between the physical world and the divine. The Sapa Inca, the emperor was seen as the living embodiment of the sun god, and part of his role was to ensure that water flowed freely and abundantly through the empire. His relationship with the water systems wasn't just a matter of governance, It was a spiritual responsibility, a duty to maintain harmony and ensure the health of the land and the people. This holistic approach to water management allowed the Incas to create a self-sustaining empire where agriculture, religion, and governance were all tied to the flow of water. The empire was built not just on military might or wealth, but on the delicate, sustainable use of natural resources. It was a system that worked in harmony with the environment, using what the land had to offer, while ensuring that it would continue to provide for future generations. Standing by the water, it's clear that the Incas understood something fundamental about the earth, that many modern societies have forgotten the importance of living in balance with nature. In the face of a rapidly changing world, the lessons of the Inca Empire are more relevant than ever. Their ability to thrive in one of the most challenging environments on Earth wasn't due to the exploitation of resources, but to their careful stewardship of the land and water that sustained them. The Inca Empire may have fallen, but the systems they created, especially their mastery of water management, continue to inspire admiration and wonder. Today, as we face challenges related to water scarcity, climate change, and environmental degradation, we can look to the Incas as a model for how to live sustainably, how to create systems that work with the earth rather than against it. The water flows on a living testament to the wisdom of a people who understood that the key to thriving as a civilization is not in conquering nature but in living in balance with it. The water continues its timeless flow, gliding over the stones that have weathered centuries. The landscape around you is at once familiar and ancient, like a quiet reminder that nature in its wisdom holds the key to sustainability. The Incas, with their intricate knowledge of the land and water, crafted an empire that existed not just by harnessing resources, but by understanding and nurturing the delicate balance between man and nature. The systems they created, from the canals and aqueducts to the sacred fountains and terraces, are a testament to the Inca belief that water was a gift from the gods, something to be treated with reverence, not just as a resource to be exploited. This deep understanding of water as a sacred force influenced not only their agricultural and religious practices, but their very concept of empire. The Inca Empire at its height was one of the most successful and enduring civilizations in history, largely because of its ability to manage the natural resources at its disposal. Water was the lifeblood of that empire, connecting cities, sustaining agriculture, and creating the infrastructure that allowed the empire to grow, flourish, and survive across a vast and varied landscape. The concept of Aini, the Andean principle of reciprocity, was at the heart of Inca society, and it extended to their relationship with water. Aini involved a mutual exchange between individuals, communities, and the earth itself. The Inca people believed that by respecting the natural world, by giving back to the earth what they took from it, they could ensure the continued flow of life. This was most evident in their water systems. The Incas didn't just take from the land they worked with it, creating sustainable water management systems that ensured the fertility of the land for future generations. The sacred springs and fountains that dotted the Inca landscape were central to this idea of reciprocity. Water was given back to the land through rituals and offerings, ensuring that the divine forces would bless the people with abundance. It wasn't just about maintaining the flow of water, it was about keeping the balance between the physical and spiritual worlds. The water that flowed through the sacred fountains wasn't simply water, it was a symbol of life itself, an offering that bridged the gap between the earthly and the divine. In every corner of the empire, from the lush sacred valley to the arid coastal plains, the Incas created water systems that were both functional and spiritual. These systems weren't just engineering feats, they were embodiments of the Incas' worldview. The aqueducts, canals, and reservoirs they built weren't just designed to transport water, they were designed to maintain balance. The Incas understood that the land, the people, and the water were all interconnected, and that to create a successful civilization they needed to nurture this connection. The Incas' ability to manage water in such a diverse and challenging environment is one of their greatest achievements. From the high-altitude terraces that required careful irrigation to the vast network of canals that supported agriculture in the valleys, the Incas were able to turn the harsh Andean landscape into a thriving, self-sustaining empire. Their water management systems allowed them to grow crops in some of the most difficult conditions on Earth, supporting a population that stretched across thousands of miles. But it wasn't just the technological prowess of their water systems that made the Inca Empire so successful. It was their understanding of the Earth's rhythms and the sacredness of the resources they were entrusted with. The Incas believed that the land was alive, that it had a soul, and that it was their duty to honour it. Water was the most sacred of all resources because it was the essence of life itself. By managing it wisely, they ensured the prosperity of their people, the fertility of the land, and the favour of the gods. As you watch the water gently flowing through the aqueducts, it becomes clear that the Incas didn't just view water as a tool for survival, they saw it as a way to maintain harmony between the earth, the people, and the gods. Water wasn't just something to be managed, it was a force to be revered, nurtured, and protected. The Incas' success was not just due to their ability to harness water, but their deep respect for it, and their understanding that true prosperity comes from living in balance with the world around us. Water, as the central element that sustained the Inca Empire, continues to flow today, a reminder of the ancient wisdom that still holds relevance in our modern world. In an age where sustainability and environmental stewardship have become urgent global concerns, the lessons of the Incas about living in harmony with nature, about respecting the land, and about managing resources responsibly are more important than ever. The Incas, though long gone, have left behind a legacy that reminds us of the enduring importance of balanced reciprocity and respect for the Earth's precious resources. As the water continues to flow unbroken and eternal, it's as if the spirit of the Inca engineers lives on in every ripple, every wave. The systems they built, the philosophy they lived by, and the wisdom they passed down continue to inspire, reminding us that sustainability, respect, and harmony with nature are the true keys to building a lasting, thriving civilization. The water flowing steadily and silently through the ancient Inca aqueducts serves as a quiet reminder that civilizations are built not just on power or wealth, but on understanding and respect for the natural world. The Incas' mastery of water management was not only an engineering feat, but a reflection of their worldview, one that prioritized balanced sustainability and the interconnectedness of all things. As you sit by the water, you realize that the Incas saw the world in a way that many modern civilizations have forgotten, as a living system, in which each element, from the smallest drop of water to the highest mountain, played a role in maintaining harmony and balance. The key to Inca success wasn't just the ingenuity of their infrastructure, but their understanding of how to live within the rhythms of the natural world. Water to the Incas wasn't just a commodity, it was a sacred force that connected them to the gods. In every community, from the remote mountain villages to the bustling cities, water was treated with reverence. The sacred fountains, wells, and springs that dotted the landscape were not merely functional, they were spiritual centres, places where the divine was believed to dwell. By honouring water and maintaining these systems, the Incas ensured not only the survival of their people, but their spiritual connection to the earth. This sacred relationship with water extended beyond just ritual and ceremony. The Inca Empire was built on the idea that all people, from the highest nobility to the common farmer, shared in the responsibility of maintaining the water systems that sustained the empire. The Incas understood that resources, including water, were not endless, and that to ensure the prosperity of future generations, they had to be used wisely and equitably. This principle of shared responsibility, embodied in the concept of any reciprocity, ensured that the management of water was not just a matter of survival, it was a matter of collective effort, community and respect. What makes the Incas' approach to water so remarkable is how they managed to blend practicality with spirituality. Their water systems weren't just designed for efficiency, they were designed to reflect their deep reverence for the land and the divine forces that governed it. The aqueducts and canals weren't just technical solutions, they were also symbols of the connection between the people and the gods. The water that flowed through the channels was believed to carry the blessings of the gods, and it was through these sacred waterways that the Incas maintained their relationship with the divine. Inca engineers, while undoubtedly skilled in the art of construction, were also spiritual stewards of the land. They understood that their role wasn't just to build systems, but to maintain the harmony between the earth and the people. By creating efficient water management systems, they ensured that the land remained fertile, that crops would grow, and that the gods would continue to bless the empire. This deep connection between the practical and the spiritual is what made the Inca Empire so enduring. It wasn't just about the systems they built, it was about the philosophy behind them, the belief that their success depended on their ability to live in harmony with nature. As the water flows through the channels, you can almost feel the energy of the past, of the people who built these systems with their hands, their knowledge, and their hearts. They didn't just build for the present, they built for the future, creating a system that would last long after they were gone. Today, as we face the challenges of environmental degradation, climate change, and the depletion of natural resources, the Inca approach offers valuable lessons. The key to long-term success, both as individuals and as a society, lies not in exploiting the Earth's resources, but in respecting them, managing them sustainably, and ensuring that they can continue to support future generations. The Incas' legacy lives on not just in the stone walls of their cities, the terraced fields that still bear fruit, or the ruins of their temples, but in the systems they created and the wisdom they embodied. Water once seen as a gift from the gods continues to flow, a reminder that the careful stewardship of natural resources is the key to sustaining life. The Inca Empire may have fallen, but the lessons they taught about the importance of balanced sustainability and respect for the earth endure. As you watch the water flow through the ancient aqueducts, you realise that the Inca understanding of water management wasn't just a technical achievement, it was a philosophy of life. It was a philosophy that recognised the interconnectedness of all things and the need to live in harmony with nature. This philosophy, grounded in respect for the land, the water and the people, is one that we can still learn from today. As you continue to sit by the flowing water, the sun beginning to dip below the mountains, it's easy to be overwhelmed by the scale of what the Incas accomplished. The water you're watching, as simple as it seems in its movement, is the result of centuries of learning, trial and error, and a deep reverence for the natural world. The aqueducts, canals and reservoirs they created were not only necessary for survival, they were the very foundation of the Inca Empire, enabling it to grow and thrive in the most challenging environments on Earth. The Incas did not just conquer and build, they understood the land in ways that modern civilizations are still struggling to replicate. The way they managed their water systems with an emphasis on sustainability and respect for the environment speaks volumes about their understanding of the world around them. They knew that for their civilization to endure, they couldn't simply take from the earth, they had to give back, maintain balance and ensure that the resources they relied on would continue to flow for future generations. One of the key aspects of Inca water management was their ability to control water distribution across vast distances. From the fertile agricultural terraces in the Sacred Valley to the high-altitude farming systems, the Incas were able to manage water flow with incredible precision. The complex network of aqueducts they built not only brought water to remote regions, but also ensured that it was distributed evenly, sustaining the needs of farmer cities and military forces alike. This was no small feat. The ability to manage water over such a vast empire was one of the keys to the Inca Empire's stability and prosperity. In some ways, water was the lifeblood of the Inca Empire, but it also served as a form of communication. The distribution of water was a visible sign of the emperor's power and the empire's reach. The Incas used water not only as a resource, but as a symbol of their authority and divine right to rule. The carefully constructed canals, fountains and aqueducts were not just functional, they were ceremonial, designed to reinforce the social and political order. The Sapa Inca, as the divine ruler, was seen as the intermediary between the gods and the people. His ability to control the flow of water was a manifestation of his divine connection and his responsibility to ensure the prosperity of his empire. As the water trickles down the stone channels, you realise that this wasn't just about conquering nature. The Incas weren't just using the land to sustain their empire, they were working with it, adapting to it, and showing respect for it. Their water systems were built with an understanding that nature must be cared for, not exploited. This philosophy extended beyond water to every aspect of Inca society, from agriculture to social organisation. The idea of aini, or reciprocity, was at the heart of their way of life. The Incas understood that in order to thrive, they needed to give back to the land and the gods, ensuring that the cycle of life continued. The incredible complexity of Inca water management also shows their remarkable engineering skill. Even without modern surveying equipment, the Incas were able to create systems that were not only functional, but also enduring. The aqueducts, many of which still stand today, were built with such precision that the water flowed smoothly and steadily across long distances. The Incas understood the natural world on a level that allowed them to create sustainable systems that lasted for centuries. And it wasn't just the technical expertise that made these systems so successful, it was the deep spiritual connection to the land and water that gave them purpose and meaning. What's truly remarkable is that many of these systems are still in use today. In a world where infrastructure often crumbles in a matter of decades, the longevity of Inca water systems is a testament to their genius. The aqueducts, which have stood the test of time, are still used to irrigate crops in some regions, ensuring that the land continues to provide for the people. The Inca understanding of water as a sacred and sustainable resource has outlasted the empire itself, continuing to serve the people long after the fall of the Inca civilization. The continued use of Inca water systems speaks not only to the durability of their engineering, but also to the wisdom of their approach. The Incas didn't just build for the present, they built for the future. They understood that the resources they had could be used sustainably if managed wisely. They didn't simply take what they needed, they thought about future generations and how they could preserve the land and water for them. This long-term vision is something that modern societies can learn from, especially as we face the challenges of environmental degradation and resource depletion. As you watch the water flow gently by, it's impossible not to feel a sense of awe and respect for the people who built these systems. The Incas were not just engineers, they were stewards of the earth. They understood that true prosperity didn't come from exploiting nature, but from working with it in harmony with its rhythms. The water they managed wasn't just a tool, it was a gift, and it was their responsibility to ensure that it continued to flow for generations to come. As you sit in quiet contemplation by the water, the gentle murmur of the current almost seems to speak of ancient times, of the people who once relied on it to sustain their way of life. The Inca Empire, with its vast and intricate systems of irrigation, aqueducts and fountains, was built on a philosophy that saw water as a precious sacred resource. The Incas didn't just see water as a means of survival, they saw it as a conduit for spiritual connection, a vital force that needed to be honoured and preserved. One of the most profound lessons the Incas teach us through their water management systems is the importance of foresight. They understood that the well-being of the empire wasn't just about meeting the needs of the present, it was about ensuring that future generations could thrive. Every aqueduct, every reservoir, and every irrigation channel was designed with a long-term vision in mind. The Incas didn't just think about the immediate future, they thought about how their infrastructure would serve the people for centuries to come. The remarkable durability of Inca water systems is a testament to this foresight. Many of these systems are still functional today, centuries after the fall of the Inca Empire. The stone aqueducts and channels that once served bustling cities and agricultural terraces still carry water, nourishing the land and sustaining the people. This longevity is a result of both the physical quality of the Inca engineering and the underlying philosophy of balance and sustainability that guided their work. But while the engineering itself was remarkable, it was the way the Incas integrated water into every aspect of their society that truly sets them apart. Water wasn't just something that flowed through aqueducts, it was woven into the fabric of their culture, religion, and daily life. Sacred fountains and wells dotted the landscape, serving not only as water sources, but as spiritual centres where the people could connect with the divine. The Inca rulers, believed to be the descendants of the sun god, were seen as the intermediaries between the gods and the people, and their ability to control and manage water was a direct reflection of their divine right to rule. As you listen to the water flowing, it's hard not to reflect on how central this element was to the empire's functioning. The Incas understood that the health of the land, the people, and the empire itself was directly tied to the flow of water. They built their empire around this understanding, creating systems that would not only feed the population, but also ensure the continued prosperity of the empire for generations. Their approach to water management was a perfect reflection of their larger worldview, that all things were interconnected, and that true power came from living in balance with nature. This holistic understanding of water extended beyond agriculture and religion. The Incas also used their water systems to promote social cohesion and unity. Public fountains and communal irrigation systems were built to ensure that all people from the elite to the common folk had access to clean water. In a society as vast and diverse as the Inca Empire, this equitable distribution of resources was crucial for maintaining social stability. Water wasn't just a resource for the few, it was a shared responsibility, a symbol of the empire's commitment to the collective good. In the modern world, where water is often treated as a commodity to be extracted and exploited, the Inca approach offers valuable lessons. The Incas saw water not as something to be consumed, but as a sacred gift to be nurtured and shared. In their society, water was a symbol of life itself, and its careful management was essential for the empire's survival. As we face the challenges of water scarcity, pollution, and climate change today, we can look to the Incas as a model for how to live in harmony with the Earth's resources, ensuring that they remain available for future generations. As you watch the water continue to flow, it's clear that the Inca Empire, though gone, left behind a powerful legacy not just in the engineering feats they accomplished, but in the philosophy they lived by. The Incas understood that the health of the land, the prosperity of the people, and the well-being of the empire were all tied to their relationship with nature. Their water systems were more than just a technical achievement. They were a reflection of their respect for the earth, their reverence for the divine, and their commitment to building a society that could sustain itself for generations. The water still flows unbroken by time, a living reminder of the wisdom of the Inca people. As you sit in the fading light listening to its gentle murmur, you can almost hear the voices of the past calling us to remember their lessons. The flow of water is not just the flow of time, it is the flow of life, a constant force that connects us all, across centuries, across cultures, and across generations. In the end, it is the care with which we manage our resources, the respect we show for the land, and the balance we strive to maintain that will determine the future of our world. End of script. Sweet dreams.